Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mind of Miz Podcast. I'm your host, Ms. Rivera. We've got a fantastic hour. We just got done recording, and this is lesson 2 on the Bill of Rights. And we really just got, focused in on the First Amendment. We talked about religious freedom. We talked about natural rights. We talked about freedom of speech. And what are the substrates of these things? What is actually underpinning these truths that we believe in, that are self-evident to us in these rights? And so we go in depth about each one of these things, and we hope that this is something that you're gonna enjoy. That's it for now. Enjoy the rest of this episode, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Mind of Miz Podcast. I'm your host, Ms. Rivera. Very glad that you guys are here. Happy 4th of July. It is a awesome time that we're going to be having here today, going over the Bill of Rights. And what we want to do is go back and look at the First Amendment today. And I know that we talked about doing multiple sessions, just 5 sessions. But what we're actually going to be doing is we're probably going to be extending this series out until we're completely done with the 10, with the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And the reason is because there's so much information that we have, and we figured, well, why would we limit ourselves? We're trying to get people to understand the rights that we have and why it's important for us to engage in the political discussion of the day. Now, normally on Thursday nights, we do our Joel's Bible study. But like I said, we're going to be postponing that for 5 weeks, so for the summer break, and we will be picking that back up. And then this series will probably transfer over to another day in the week. We're not sure yet what day that's going to be. I'm thinking possibly Sunday nights. We'll see on my schedule, but we'll definitely be still putting out an episode a week. So for those of you that watch the Mind of Miz Podcast or listen to us, once we pick up the Job series again, we'll be going back to 2 episodes a week, which is pretty cool. And then we'll see how long we can keep that going, even after the Bill of Rights. We'll see what happens with that. So I wanted to tell you guys just at the outset here, I was thinking about this because, I called these, Bill of Rights lesson 1, lesson 2, kind of doing that. And then I thought to myself, well, I'm used to saying stuff like study or lesson because I'm generally a Bible teacher. That's kind of what I like to do. I have done it for a long time. I was a youth pastor and preached at many churches, and I've been a lead preacher and all of that in other churches before. So that's kind of my forte. And so I kind of use the same language as far as teaching the lessons when I came into talking about the Bill of Rights. And what I want to make sure is that you guys understand I'm not an expert in any of this. This is just a concerned citizen, that wants to engage people at a somewhat kind of just, layman's term level when it comes to the discussions of the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and that kind of thing. And so I definitely want to welcome the conversation for those of you that want to engage with us and you want to subscribe and engage with us one-on-one, whether it's through email or through we got a forum that you can check out, different things that we've got going on. You just go to mindofmiz.com/subscribe, and you can engage with us. So I want you to know this is an open kind of discussion, even though I'm the one that's doing most of the talking on my end over here. I want you to know that I'm definitely open to any questions that you guys might have. And if you're a subscriber, we do have a Q&A session that we have at the end of this. And so you can always be a participant in that. If you're not a subscriber yet, I'm going to entice you to become a subscriber, because for the next 5 weeks, we're going to be, whoever subscribes, or any new subscribers that come in, we'll put you in a little drawing to get this book. We're going to be giving away 3 of them. This is the Constitution of the United States, which is like literally just the last few pages on this book. Most of this book is really the selected writings of the founding fathers. The Federalist Papers are here. George Washington's farewell address, things like that. Very interesting book. So I would definitely recommend you to get that if you don't have it. But if you want to try and get it for free, just subscribe, mindofmiz.com/subscribe. So a little shameless plug there. So let's get right into this. And we might be using some Bible verses here as we're going through this, but we're going to kind of get started. So it's always a little weird for me because, I always start with the Bible first. But let's jump right into it. Today we're going to be looking at the First Amendment. And I'm just going to read the First Amendment to you so you can kind of get an idea of what it says, okay? It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And the main things that I really want to cover today is going to be the Establishment Clause, which is part of this. It's the establishment of religion, or, you shall not do that in the United States. And then talking a little bit about freedom of speech. Okay. So if I can get my clock up, that'd be awesome. So I can know whether I'm doing good on my time or not. Well, the first thing that I want to say, and this is really important, and I'm probably going to be emphasizing this during my discussions on this. And it's that if you read the First Amendment, it says Congress shall make no law. Okay. And so the limit is on Congress. Okay. It's not on the people. And this is super important. Okay. These are limits. When we see limits anywhere in the Constitution, it's really going to be generally a limit on the government itself. Okay, whether it's typically federal, but there'll be other things with the states as well. But it's not going to be on the individual. Okay, we are free people in this country. Now, I know there's a lot of people that don't feel that way. They have the different grievances. And, as I'm thinking about these things, I'll try to cover some of those things, as best as I can. But again, I welcome the conversation on your end. So you're going to hear me talk about that limit being on the government a lot. Okay. I'm not going to spend too much time on that here today because there's other things that I want to get to on this. But please understand that you are a free person, okay, in this country. Your vote actually does matter. And I know that you hear politicians say that sometimes, and sometimes we think, well, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter who I vote for. They're not going to do anything for me. And I want to address that. I want to address that today. And the reason that I want to address that is because as Christian people, okay, most people that listen to this podcast are believers. As Christians, we are the best equipped, okay, by the Word of God, particularly if you're a person that studies the Bible. We're the best equipped to be able to really move this country forward, to truly take the mantle of the Constitution and the biblical worldview that is inherently behind it, that forms the structure and the substrate of the Constitution, and be able to move forward. Now, when I say that, I don't mean by any stretch of the imagination that we want to Christianize America, or that we want to make this a Christian nation. And some of you that might even know me might be screeching right now and wondering, what are you saying? Of course we're a Christian nation. Well, we're not. We're not a secular nation either. I wouldn't say that. But we're a nation of laws. We're a nation that believes inherently in natural rights, in the rights that God has given human beings, generally speaking. And we're a republic that wants to uphold those rights and wants to protect its people to make sure that those rights are not being infringed upon. Because we have freedom of religion. And today we're going to be talking about, Congress not being able, it says, shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. So for us to come here and say we're a Christian nation and we're going to establish Christianity as the religion of this country is backwards thinking. It really is, because we have to keep in mind that there's all kinds of people in the world. There's a verse in the Bible, in 1 Corinthians, I believe it is, where it talks about, you were this and you were this, such were you, talking about all the different types of people and sinners that we were before we came to Christ. And that includes the Jew, the Hindu, the Muslim, the Buddhist. It includes all kinds of religions. And so I think, again, as Christians, we are best positioned to be able to understand that God saves people, and that we have a fundamental belief in that we don't coerce people into our religion. We don't beat them over the head, although, that happens in some places, in some churches and in Christian circles. But if we are to listen to the gospel, to the word of God, that's not the kind of Christian that you are. The kind of Christian that you are is you try to live your life by this word, and you try to live to the glory of God. And in doing that, then we can establish the type of government, that is going to allow for others to be able to live humanely, to be able to live with the natural rights that God has given human beings. Because we understand as Christians, obviously, that there are the wicked and there's the righteous. We've talked about this in our studies, but we ourselves don't make that judgment. We don't go around calling people wicked or righteous or not, because people can fool you. You can walk around and think someone's righteous for 30 years and they turn around and they've been doing all kinds of stuff behind the doors. And so we don't know. What we do know is that we, as individuals, we walk before God, we glorify his name. And so I want to talk to the Christian here, but I also want to talk to those that maybe aren't believers, but you've kind of lost your hope in whatever, government is. And so I want to go through a few points here with you, and hopefully this is going to help you out. So the first thing that I want to talk about is that society actually is the one that gives birth to government. Whether it's a representative government, whether it's a monarchy, even if it's a dictatorship, society is what gives birth to that. In the Bible, for example, you have, the Israelites clamoring to God and to Samuel saying, give us a king. We want a king. And so God gives them a king, and he warns them about the things that might happen with a king, or that will happen when they have a king. We don't have time to get into that story, but one of the big points that we can learn from that is that the society is the one that established essentially the kingship. They wanted it. They asked for it. And so a lot of times when we see leaders, whether they be tyrannical or good leaders, they're often a representation of the society as a whole. All right, so you look at the leadership right now in the United States, and you see someone in the presidency, for example, who is okay with abortion, who is okay with these transgender kind of ideologies that are permeating our culture. And down from the presidency, down to the vice president's office, down to the generals in the army, you're seeing this kind of pervasive mentality set in. But then when you look across America and you actually look into, the people, you're like, well, there it is. They want that. They vote that in. And then on the other side, you might be a Christian and you might be saying to yourself, well, that's certainly not what I want. But, we're complacent. We're not involved because, it's just politics. I don't like dealing with politics. And so I want to kind of, in some ways, get that out of your mind. I want you to be involved in the political process, not because I believe that, if Christians come to run for office, all of a sudden America will be saved. I mean, we've got plenty of examples in the Bible of kings that were Jews and Israel still suffering. It doesn't matter. Sometimes things are going to happen, but we do live in a country, in a nation that allows for us as the people to be involved. And I think it would be important. So the first thing is society gives birth to the government. And society is competent, right? Or at least we hope that society is competent. And so government derives its competency from the people, right? The people, for example, are not less experts than the government. But when you look at 2020, for example, and you look at everything that happened with COVID, so many people, my friends, Christian friends included, kind of threw their hands up and said, hey, I'm not an expert. I don't know. The government's saying do this, shut it down, whatever it is, I'm going to do it. And you saw this country just go through so much turmoil. We're still in it, really. We're still, it hasn't fully left us. In fact, it might be returning. There's a lot of talks of bringing back a lot of these restrictions. And why? Why do we do that? Why do we think that because someone's in a White House or in a government building on Capitol Hill, that all of a sudden they're more competent than you or I? They derive their competence from the very people. And this is important for you to understand, because what we have in common as a people is our humanity. And yet we live in a time and a place where what people want to point out is our diversity. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, just think about this. If you got an Indian person, right, in India, they probably eat curry, chicken curry or something like that. And you got a Mexican in Mexico, they probably eat carne asada, right, or tacos or whatever it is they eat. Well, if you start just focusing on the different foods and be like, oh, these are two completely different people, and look at that diversity of their cultures, well, at the end of the day, you can just say, yeah, but both need food to survive. What's the basic thing that we have in common? And what I want you to understand, and what I'm understanding as I look through these things and I go back and I read the founding fathers and the framers of the Constitution, is that they really believed in natural rights. They understood that, people are people. Humans are humans. Whether you run into someone in Africa, or you run to them in China, or you run into them in Russia, or here in America, we're just people. When their loved ones die, they cry too. When our loved ones die, we cry. They get sick just like we get sick. They need food just like we need food. They need sustenance just like we need sustenance. They need shelter just like we need shelter. There's just basic natural rights that we all want, that we all know are ours. For example, if we were to take, you don't think, for example, that when Africans were selling off, their own people and they were being put in boats, being bought by Americans and by Europeans and by all these people, you had Arabs buying, you had all these people around the world buying African slaves. You don't think they felt any different when they were being caged up like animals and being thrown at the bottom of a boat, in the bottom of a ship, I should say? Of course. They would feel just as horrible as you would feel if that happened to you. So their right of freedom is everybody's right of freedom. But we live in a world where nobody thinks about humanity anymore, and we want to rather think about our diversities. And our diversities is what makes us different. But that's not what the Constitution looks at, particularly the Declaration of Independence, right? It says all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with unalienable rights. Okay, this idea that unites us. Now, people say, well, yeah, but there was slavery in America. You know, that's not what they really thought. No, they really did think that. The thing is, you have to recognize these are men. These are people that are trying to figure out, we know what's right. This is a point that the founders used to make. Every man knows what's right and what's wrong. They know what a virtue is and what a vice is. The question is, are we going to do the virtuous thing? And they recognize that man will always try to do what's wicked. Well, where else do we read that? In the Word of God. We know that man is radically corrupt. And so we have to understand that, we live in a country that, yes, it has its history, but what it says in our Constitution, in our Declaration, in our Bill of Rights is influenced by the biblical world view. And I want you to understand that. So people, you and I, the people, when I say the people, I mean all of us, okay? We should be very concerned and involved in politics. We should not dismiss politics. We should be, in some sense, all politicians of some sort. We should be engaged in the process of what's going on. Because if we don't think about politics, our perceptions of it, right, which can often be wrong, can't be corrected. If what you think about politics is that, it doesn't matter, my vote doesn't change, but you've never called your congressman or your senator or tried to, in some way, some shape or form, talk to your friends, talk to people, see what the world actually thinks around you, and see where you can make a difference possibly, well, of course, your perception of politics will never change. And another thing that we have to realize is the doctrines that come out of politics, that rule the day. This is extremely important. Tunis Wortman, who wrote in the 1800s, was very influential, wrote, there is no, quote, there is no topic of investigation in which the happiness of mankind is more immediately concerned than in the doctrines which relate to civil government, end quote. He's the same guy that said, quote, the genuine operation of government is to promote and perpetuate the happiness of people, end quote. So you have this idea where our government is built to promote and perpetuate. Now, if you go back to the founders, you'll see that kind of language, to promote and to perpetuate. To promote what? That general happiness, to be able to live your life the way that you want to live it. And to promote that and then to perpetuate it, to make it grow. Now, when people come into this country, they know, I'm going to America to be an American and to live under the U.S. Constitution. Well, the crisis that we have at the border, for example, goes against that. Because the people that are coming in are not following the legal process, and they're just being kind of shipped into the country, and they're not trying to be American. They don't have an identity as an American. And so that's going to hurt our society, a society that believes in freedom, if we still live in that kind of society. And another thing that Wortman wrote that I thought was interesting, he talked about, is politics, is this something that people should be involved in? Or should it be only, in quote, the impenetrable recesses of the castle? I love that line. Should it just be in the deep, dark rooms of castles and only there they discuss politics? Meanwhile, everything that goes on there affects you. Me and my wife were in Austin this past weekend. And we went out there to a resort, and then we were hanging out in Austin, and we went to the Capitol. We went to the Capitol building, and we saw where the senators sit, and we saw where the representatives sit, the representatives sit, and just kind of the big grand, what they call the halls of power. And I really just started thinking, this is every conversation that happens in this building behind those closed doors affect us one way or another. And for us to think that that's just politics, that it doesn't really impact me, that it doesn't really change me, that it doesn't change those I love around me, we're wrong. And I think until we as Christians often, and just as people, until we start being more engaged in what's going on, we're just going to see this hopeless cliff just keep on going down, down, and down. And the thing is, you're part of the problem because we live in a representative government. We live in a government where the society gives birth to the government. The competence that the government has comes from the people. The power that the government has comes from the people. And here we are, either allowing that to just grow unchecked, or we're just complacent about it. We're not involved. The government protects our natural rights. That's what they're supposed to do. And we're supposed to demand that they do that. That's our job. Your job as a citizen, when it comes to politics, when it comes to the government, is to demand that they protect your natural rights. And if we were to sit here and enumerate the amount of times that our human rights, our natural human rights, have been violated or infringed upon, we'd be here for a long time. And so we need to start paying attention to that. Well, we, the people, okay, and this is the last thing I'll say about this. We, the people, we can be the greatest threat to our government. You hear they talk about Russia. They talk about, China, North Korea, Iran. You know who's the biggest threat to our U.S. government? Is we, the people. When we start speaking, when we start saying the truth, when we start holding them accountable, even the tyrant will shake on his throne. Because he knows the time is coming. The time of reckoning is coming. This is why there's revolutions. Because people stand up for what they believe in. Well, there's a lot of people standing up in this country, but they're standing up for horrible ideologies. There's people tearing up the streets right now over ideologies that make no sense, are all feeling and emotion. No rational thought goes into it. And, we need to pay attention. But here's the thing. We're the greatest threat to the government when we engage, when we speak, when we vote. And we're the greatest enemy of ourselves when we stay silent. And so you have to choose which one you're going to do. Okay. So back to looking at the First Amendment here. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Okay. So let's talk about religious freedom here for just a moment. Religious freedom is rooted in the natural right to believe. Okay. Now, there's been kind of a pernicious idea that has gone around in many circles that this nation was really a secular nation, and this is why we wanted the separation of church and state, because the founders really, they weren't orthodox and they were more secular in nature and deists and this kind of thing, and really what they wanted was just they didn't really want anything to do with religion. And, at the end of the day, they just kind of wanted to just be secular and just have a good empire and a good country and whatnot. Don't believe that for a minute. Okay. Don't believe it. Here's the thing. Okay. We have a natural right to believe. Now that you've probably never heard that. I don't even know that I've read that anywhere. That's kind of the way that I'm expressing it, but I want to explain what I mean here. You have what I would call believers okay, and you would have non-believers. Or believers, okay, and then believers who choose another belief system. And by that, I mean unbelief in God. They're believers, they just believe in something else that's not God. And I want to show you this biblically, okay? Go with me to Romans chapter 1 and look at verse 22 and 23. And you're gonna see this right in front of you, okay? Look what it says. It says, professing to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the incorruptible God for an image in the form of corruptible man and of birds and four-footed animals and crawling creatures. Okay? So that's a believer that knows there's a God, has no excuse according to Romans, but exchanges the glory of God for something else. In other words, exchanges that belief system and says, no, I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to believe in whatever it is, humanism, science, evolution, whatever it is that they want to believe in, okay? So you have to understand this. A person, a creature, okay, that God has made, that's us, we're his creation, creatures, we're made to believe. In fact, the Bible even says in James chapter 2, verse 19, it says, you believe that there is one God. Good. That's man, right? Man believes. It says, even the demons believe that and shudder. So even the demons have a belief system. So you understand here what we're talking about. We're talking about God has made us. And if you do not understand the biblical worldview of God as creator, and you don't think that that's precisely what the founders meant, particularly when they were writing the Declaration of Independence there, I don't know that I can help you. Because you're being intellectually dishonest. You're not letting history, the documents that we do have, speak for themselves. You're disbelieving in God, and in your process of disbelieving in God, you want to erase everything and anything that has to do with God. But you can't do that, because then you lose everything that you do have that God did give to you. And so we have to be careful with that. So religious freedom is for the believer and for the believer that chooses a religion, right? So what I mean by that is that if you believe something, you're going to practice that out in your life one way and another. And that's called religion, okay? In some places, it's more organized. In other places, it's less organized. But you get the idea. And then there are those who are believers again, but they exchange it for something else. Okay, they want to live their life however it is that they want to live their life. Okay. And now I'm not trying to say those kinds of people shouldn't exist in the United States. I care, but it doesn't matter in what we're trying to discuss here. Now, if we're trying to discuss salvation, it absolutely matters. Okay, because your life should be lived as unto Christ. But otherwise, if you don't believe that and you don't want to believe that, you have every right to live in what I would call your unbelief. But you can't take away the very fact that religious freedom is rooted in the natural right. That is, in the natural nature of man to believe in something, okay? And live his life out according to that. So, in other words, I wrote this down. I want to read it for you. In other words, the framers, they weren't thinking to themselves, but geez, there are a lot of folks who don't believe in anything. Let's make sure that we give them the right to express that non-belief through whatever religion they want. Do you think that's what they were thinking? Of course not. That doesn't make any sense. Why would they even write the First Amendment if they believed that everybody was secular and that it was normal to not believe in anything? No, that wouldn't make any sense at all. The view was something more like this. Men are creatures that believe. But what they believe and how they religiously express that cannot be determined by other men who themselves have a preferred way to express what they believe. So you see, there's a group now of people that call themselves Christian nationalists. And the idea of Christian nationalist, again, is to create a national Christian nation. And that's wrong. You can't force that on nobody. You can't force those rules on anybody. Our Constitution doesn't allow for it. Our Bill of Rights doesn't allow for it. But at no point would I ever concede that what the framers were trying to do was essentially obliterate religion, put it out there somewhere where, sure, we'll give you the right to kind of believe that, but really we want to be secular. Really, it's not that it's the other way around, but what they were trying to do essentially was protect religion because they knew that men believed. We're talking about thousands of years of history here. That they were smart enough to look back into the annals of time and say, well, in every culture, in every time, people believe something. And in every culture, and every time, it seems that people get persecuted for what they believe in. Not in America. We won't do that here. But what you need to understand is that itself is a testament, evidence, I would even say, to what the framers understood about belief, that it was natural. And so to those that like to say otherwise, I would say, read the amendment again. I mean, look the way that it's laid out. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. It's rooted in the natural right of man to believe and to be able to be free to believe whatever it is that he believes in. Now we're not talking about here, from a biblical perspective of how God views that. Obviously, we see in Romans 1 how God views that. But even God himself doesn't immediately come down to earth, let's say, and destroy the person that doesn't believe. No, he lets it play out. By the time you get to the end of chapter 1 in Romans, you see the degradation of society. You see the society getting into more and more sin to the point where it says that they like to enjoy the sin with others. They revel when others are sinning along with them. Well, it seems to me that that's where we're at in our country. But it's not because the framers envisioned this secular world. They envisioned a world where people believed and they were going to believe and they were going to be allowed to worship and to have the religious services in whatever manner it was, so long as it didn't hinder or infringe upon another natural right, which I don't even know if I have time to get into that today. Well, the First Amendment, right, then today, I think, is often used as a battering ram against believers, particularly Christians, okay? Because they want to create a sense that the natural state of a person is secular in nature. That is to be an unbeliever. But this is not the case. And so, as a Christian, again, the reason that I say we're in the best position to really take the truth that are in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that are there to actually try to and apply them. The Christian has the best. In fact, it was Christians in the early days of the Republic that were going forth and doing this. They were believers of some sort. Now, not everybody believed in the same way, but, we have denominations today where people believe different things. But the idea is that God is the one that gives these rights. You have to, and I know I keep kind of, hitting this thing on the head, but I think that most, I don't even know if I should say it that way, but a lot of people I feel that I come across feel that or believe that America gives them their right. And they think, oh man, we're going to lose our rights. They're going to take our rights away. The Constitution does not even use that kind of language. The language that it uses is that we have natural rights. Okay, and I think we talked about that in the first episode. So maybe go back to there and listen to that again so you can have a proper understanding of this. Okay, let's really quick here. Okay, I'm just looking at my timer, making sure I'm good. Let's talk about the Establishment Clause. Now, when I say Establishment Clause, I want you to know what I'm talking about here. In the First Amendment, it says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Okay, so that's what's called, or what we can call it's called the Establishment Clause. Okay. Now, at this point, one of the books that I read, I think the last name was Levy, Levi. And he says in the book that the First Amendment, particularly looking at the Establishment of Religion clause there, is a right that has no superior. This is it. This is the one. And I thought that was really interesting when I read that. But in any country that claims freedom, okay, the established state religion does away with the free exercise of religion. Okay. So look at the way this is laid out in the First Amendment here. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, right? So they cannot establish a religion, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Hinduism. No religion could be established. The Congress cannot say this is the official religion of the United States. Okay, cannot do that. And it says shall make no law. Not ought not to make a law, shouldn't make a law. We would like you not to make a law, shall make no law. It's absolute language that is being used there, okay? And again, the limit is on Congress. Congress shall make no law. Respecting an establishment of religion, okay? And then it says, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Why is it in that order? Why do you think it's in that order? Because if they establish a religion, then you're prohibiting the free exercise of the person's natural right to believe in whatever it is that they want to believe in. Okay? So you have to understand, as a Christian, whenever your right is being infringed upon, when COVID happened and so many churches got shut down, and Mayor de Blasio in New York, I remember I wrote an article on this, and he's talking about, we're going to shut down the churches indefinitely. Are you out of your mind? One, you get your power from the people. Two, you get your competence from us. Three, your position was born from society itself. Who do you think you are? You climbed up. We put you where you're at. And see, this is the thing that people need to understand. Politicians, while they campaign, and in fact, even some of the founders frowned upon campaigning. They thought that the people would just elect their leaders. That's the guy. That's the person that we like. That's the leader that's the man or woman that should lead us. Well, people like power. Well, here's the rule. Here's the rule, according to our Constitution. If you are elected into a government office, you have to enjoy, and you can enjoy it all you want. You can enjoy the limited power that you're given, but that's it. But is that what happens? No, because people always want more, right? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So what do? We try to make sure people don't get that absolute power. Well, we got this Establishment Clause. I went down a little rabbit hole there, but you have this Establishment Clause, okay? And you have to have the free exercise of religion. And in order to do that, you cannot have an established state religion. Now, some people are confused about this, okay? This amendment, what it doesn't do, for example, it doesn't do away with religious belief inside the halls of power, okay? So when we were at the at the Capitol in Austin, we're very well aware that there's people there that are way on the left. They maybe they say they believe in God, but everything else about them says they don't. And you got people on the right that do believe in God, and maybe they go to church, and maybe they're Christians or whatever it might be. And you got all kinds of people in between. Okay. Each one of those people are still people. Okay. They're still regular humans, just like you and I. They don't become supernatural. Okay. Well, all of a sudden they're endowed with some divine, way of thinking that they can come up with better laws than you and I can. No, they just represent us. But they have a right to be religious, to have their religion, to have their belief. Okay. There's no religious test that they have to pass in order to get there. Now, you as a Christian might not want to vote for someone who's an atheist. That's your right to do that. Okay. Or, you're an atheist and you don't want to vote for someone who believes. That's your right to do that. I'm not sure what atheist candidates are out there, but, if you get one, you can vote for them. So what we're talking about here is that inside the halls of power, the natural rights extend even to them. Okay? And at the end of the day, for example, look at the Declaration of Independence. Look at how it says this. It says, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Okay? So again, what are they protecting? What is the government protecting? According to what we're just reading here, that to secure these rights, what rights? Rights that are given by God, right? By the Creator with certain unalienable rights. To protect those rights, governments are instituted. So you're telling me that we're supposed to have an instituted government that is so secular and so godless in nature, and that godless government is going to protect my God-given rights. How would that happen? So the same people, and it's crazy, the same people that would want every vestige of religion out of any building, no prayers ever, or anything like that. And there's details on that we can discuss if we have time. But if you want to take all God out of everything that's in the government, and you just want, 100 atheists in the Senate, 400 odd, atheists in the House of Representatives, an atheist in the White House, and you just want a bunch of godless people, do you think these godless people are going to protect your God-given rights if they don't believe in God? No. Do you see why it becomes even more important as a Christian to be involved in politics? To be involved in the rule of law? In the making of the rule of law? We can't just dismiss this. And this is why we're talking about this. We like to stick to the Bible, but in sticking our nose in the Bible, we can't forget that we live in a real world where real humans exist and live. Okay? Where in some places in the world, Christians are persecuted for what they believe in. Do we want that here? Then pay attention. Wake up. Well, another thing that we want to understand here, for what we just read in the Declaration of Independence here, we have to acknowledge here that the Declaration of Independence is not establishing this truth. It's merely acknowledging it. It's merely stating what's obvious to everybody else. It says we hold these truths to be self-evident. It's like if you have a brain, you know this is true. So again, freedom of religion, what we talked about earlier, is established on the natural right that we have to believe. Because in every culture, as you look around, people believe in something. Even now, one of the weirdest things that's happening in our society it's this kind of, because people are reacting in some circles, are reacting really bad to this whole left transgender, abortion up to, basically to the 9 month. I mean, just the ridiculousness that's coming out of the left right now. And people are starting to react to them. They're like, I'm just going to be a Catholic. Or I'm just going to follow Jesus. And they follow whatever version of the first version of Jesus they find. Or they become spiritual. You see it. You see it in people that have never been. Russell Brand, for example. I don't like to, talk about other people here. But Russell Brand, we all kind of know, the kind of life that he lived. He even admits it. Even he now, is a Christian. I don't know what kind of Christian. I'm not sure exactly, what he believes. But you're seeing this kind of weird shift. And so what does that tell you? Well, without today being concerned about whether they believe in Christ and in the gospel, because we're not doing that right now. But without looking at that, they're turning towards belief. Their belief system is starting to kick back in. Even if for years they were ignoring it, it's starting to get kicked back in. And so this is an opportunity in some ways for Christians to say, wait a minute, we have the truth. We have the very word of God. But if we're not involved, if we're not even talking about these things, how can we even put a word edgewise in? We can't, because you're not part of the conversation. Now, I'm Miz. I'm a nobody. Okay. I don't have, millions of followers that I can influence. But if anybody is listening to me and you're a believer, get involved in some way. Go read the Federalist Papers, go read the Constitution, go read the Bill of Rights, and then read the Bible. And you're going to notice, there's a lot of similarities here. I'm not saying that they quote the Bible, although in some of the letters and stuff like that, you do see that in some other writings. And certainly there's some language, not in the Constitution or in the Bill of Rights, because again, they're trying to avoid that. But it's undeniable. And so that should tell you, and we're the ones. We're in the best position to really try to make sense of the world that we live in, particularly with the blessing of the kind of constitution that we have. I hope that's making sense to you guys. So whatever the Creator endows upon his creators, no man can take away. I thought here about Mark chapter 10, verse 9, where Jesus is talking here in reference to marriage. But I think it's kind of apt here where it says, well, therefore God has joined together, let not man separate. And I would say the same thing about our natural rights, our right to have our religion, to believe, to have church the way you want to have church, and not be restricted by the government. Okay? Because we're seeing this happen in too many places. So it's wrong to think that we can take religion, God, outside of our public place is wrong. It's not what the framers intended at all. What they wanted was to essentially protect, the government, religion. Here's something that John Jay wrote in Federalist paper number 2. I think this is salient because while congressmen cannot enforce prayer, they cannot enforce you to believe Jesus and believe God the way that I believe it. John Jay recognized something, and he's one of the framers. And here's what he recognized. He writes, with equal pleasure, I have as often taken notice that Providence, referring to God here, has been pleased to give this one connected country. Now, if you read the Federalist paper before that, he's actually talking about how this country is connected, how the mountains kind of slip into the valleys and then the rivers and everything's connected and the lakes. And you got this beautiful country that's all connected. So he says, in the same way that that's connected, I see this one connected country, I'm quoting here, to one united people. A people descended from the same ancestors, speaking the same language, professing the same religion, attached to the same principles of government, very similar in their manners and customs, and who by their joint councils, arms, that's weapons, right, and efforts, fighting side by side throughout a long and bloody war, he's talking about the Revolutionary War there, have nobly established general liberty and independence, end quote. Now notice a few things he says here. He says that they have descend from the same ancestors. Now, you had Dutch, you had Irish, you had Italian, you had, I don't know if you had Italians necessarily at that. Well, yeah, probably had some. Englishmen, okay? You had Scots, you had Indians in the Revolutionary War, you had blacks, you had all kinds of people, okay? All these people, and he says, descended from the same ancestors. What does that mean? Descended from the same ancestors. Well, the Christian has the better answer to that, does he not? Who are we all descendants of? Adam and Eve. What do we all have in common? Our humanity. So here you have one of our founding fathers and the framers talking in this way, speaking the same language, right? Because that's important. Yeah, but we have a world now where, one of the things that we noticed, and this is very odd, and I don't know exactly what to make of it, but when we were at the Capitol, it was unbelievable the amount of foreign people that we ran into there. And almost none of them were speaking English. It was weird. You'd hear a language here, a language there, a language there, a language. Everybody's kind of speaking their own thing. And it's like, well, that's strange, because it's not that you can't have your, another language. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with that. We don't have an official language. But there's something to, are we saying the same thing? Do we believe the same thing? Are we speaking the same way? Okay. And in a country right now where so many people are coming in and we don't know where they're coming from and why they're here. Okay. Do they understand the Constitution? I would say probably not, because a lot of Americans themselves that live here, been born here, don't get it. And so we're losing something there. Well, the other thing that he says here, he says, professing the same religion. There, again, is belief in God. And so this is something that we have and that we share together, attached to the same principles of government, very similar in their manners and customs. And then at the end, look what he says. I love this. He says, have nobly established general liberty and independence. General. So even though, I might believe a particular thing about the Bible, I want general liberty and independence for all people. But I believe the Christian is in the best position to do that, because the Christian never lets go of the roots of what we have in our Constitution, in our Declaration of Independence, and in our Bill of Rights. All right, so the government is not supposed to be godless, okay? That's really the big thing here. And the framers, they wanted to, when you read Madison, for example, what you come to understand is that they wanted to just preserve religion, right? And you see it in the First Amendment there. It says, no law respecting an establishment of religion. It's not saying no religion can be established anywhere in the U.S. It says the government can do that. And by saying that the government shall not establish a religion, it says you're free to establish religion. It keeps religion alive in this country. So tell me why are so many people having such a concerted effort to remove all kinds of religion from all influences that are public? And you tell me if that's what we were built on, if that's the Bill of Rights. Because if you want your Bill of Rights, I want you to go write your own Bill of Rights. You don't believe in God? Here's the challenge. Go write your own Bill of Rights, okay? Steal nothing from the Bill of Rights that we have here or any other Bill of Rights, okay? Don't go to the Magna Carta. Don't go to any of the other Bill of Rights that came out of England. Don't go to none of those, because those are all based on the biblical worldview. Okay? Don't go to any Bible. Don't talk about no creator. And I want you, this is your challenge. You come up with the Bill of Rights that makes sense. And then you say, how do you justify each one of those rights? Because the first question I'm going to ask is like, who gave me these rights? And the moment you say to me, well, they're self-evident, you're stealing. They can't be self-evident. You got to make them up. See, that's the thing. You can't make these up. In fact, one of the big arguments that was happening with the Bill of Rights, when the Constitution was written originally, it didn't have a Bill of Rights. The framers didn't think it needed it, frankly. The only reason that it was added, and we talked about this in the first week, was so that it could be ratified. And it was ratified without the Bill of Rights, but the promise of amendments was forthcoming. And so the idea was to at least enumerate, in this case, 10. There's you can argue that there's multiple, obviously, in some of these, but these rights, to enumerate them so that at least we have something on paper, if you want to put it that way. I'm simplifying that argument there. But the reality is that they didn't come up with these. They just recognize these. These are self-evident. We know that these things have to be protected. Now, I'll get to that later because I need to finish up here. Okay. So I've been doing a lot of reading. And by the way, if you disagree with me and you've read something in the Framers, the Federalist paper, anything like that, I've been reading a lot of these things. And in the literature that I've seen, there's nothing to me that's indicative that a progressive move towards a secular government was what they were trying to do. Not at all. So again, we're not supposed to have a Christian government, but it's certainly not meant to be a secular, godless government. And there's a huge distinction in those two things. Huge distinction. Okay. Okay. The last thing that I'll say on this is that if we were to give control of religion to the government, then it spoils the limits of government. Our government is supposed to be limited. Okay. But if the government could say which religion you're supposed to be, all of a sudden it becomes an unlimited government. Okay. Because if it could tell you what to believe in, it could tell you anything else. All right. And if you look at a lot what that comes out of these corrupt politicians often is they want you to believe their spin, their story, their version of things. I watched for an hour 2 days ago, I think it was, after Biden had his kind of fallout in the debate with Trump. And, his press secretary talking about, we understand, we get it, but it was just a bad night. It was just, said it like 1,000 times, it seems like. And I'm sitting there watching this like, you're not even going to acknowledge what a room full of people is asking you. That's ignorant. That's dangerous. It's dangerous because we have what's called a natural right to thought. This is one of my final points here. We have a natural right to thought. And the government sometimes tries to control our thoughts. Well, what is our freedom of speech based on? Well, when we read here in our amendment, in the amendment, it says, we're bridging the freedom of speech. We're going to kind of move directions here. And Zuli, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm talking to my wife here. I don't know what I'm going to do because I always think I'm going to get through these things and then I don't get through them. That's my perpetual problem, I think, forever and ever. It's my natural right to take forever to do these things. But anyways, this portion of the amendment here, First Amendment says, abridging the freedom of speech. Well, what is freedom of speech based on? What's based on the natural right to thought, right? You can think, right? You have thoughts in your head. And through the gift of language that God has given us, no other creature has this gift of language, we are able to express those thoughts, talk about them. That's called speech. And yet, the government thinks for some reason that they can tell us what to think about politics, about what just happened, about what we literally just saw with our own eyes. You know, we see how this one thing happened here or there, or wherever it is. You know, you can go back. If you think I'm just, trying to talk about Biden here or something, you can go back to Bush if you want to. With the Iraq war, weapons of mass destruction. We all look at it like, where were they at? What are you talking about? Okay, these are the things that happen that we sometimes allow the government to just speak for us. COVID, it happened all over again. This is what you're going to do. Okay. This is what it does. Okay. People taking medication that works and it's saving lives. No, it's not saving lives. Oh, okay. Oh, this vaccine is killing people. No, it's not. Oh, okay. Just because you say so. Guys, look, you have a natural right to thought. Okay. You know what's right and wrong. God's giving you that ability. Don't give it up to the government. And certainly don't do it by, withholding your voice or your vote. So freedom of speech itself is rooted in freedom of thought and freedom of investigation, right? That's what freedom of thought leads to. You investigate. This is my thought. Let me investigate further. Am I right? Am I wrong? And you have the ability to do that. Well, you also have, because you can think and because you can investigate things, you also have a right to free speech. Okay? Is that the end of my time there? Okay. Do I have a few more minutes? Okay. I got to ask my timekeeper for a few extra minutes. You guys can hang tight. I'll be done here shortly. But let's talk about this last thing here, the natural right to free speech. Okay. I just want to hit this topic real quick. We have this right, okay, to free speech, to speak. We have language, right? But it has to be cultivated. All right. If you ever hear a baby talk, right? They have baby talk. Yeah. Right. You don't know what they're saying. And then as they're getting older, it's kind of cute when they're doing the whole, and then at some point you're like, okay, hey, you got to start speaking clearly now. Start enunciating your words. Don't slur. Okay. And then you have to cultivate that. That's a bad word. You can't cuss like that. Or, you got to teach them how to say please or thank you. You got to cultivate the speech. Well, you and I have to be cultivated. How does that happen as Americans? Well, for starters, if you're a Christian, you should read your Bible because that's going to regulate your speech a lot. But then you might want to pick up a book once in a while. And how about maybe read through the Constitution? Or read the Bill of Rights, or read, become a subscriber and get that book that I offered you earlier. Another shameless plug there. Do something to cultivate your speech. One of the advice that I give people often when they don't know how to communicate, I tell them, read. If you read and read a lot, you'll get better at talking. You'll get better at communicating. You'll learn new words. You'll learn how to put sentences together and put thoughts together. And you become a stronger, more powerful person in that way. But while we have this right to speech, okay, and it's a natural right, people talk, right? It's a natural right. A matter of fact, you don't ever teach your kids English. They just learn it. If I'm talking here about your natural language, Chinese, whatever that might be, you just pick it up. Don't you wish you had that gift still? You just turn on the news or whatever from another country and just pick up the language. Immersive kind of, that does exist, but you get the point. Well, what do we speak to? Okay, here's the second thought on this. Well, we speak to the morals that bind us, not that diversity that makes us different. And that's really important, especially today. Because most people who haven't cultivated their speech, you'll be like, hey, how you doing? They're like, I'm a they or them. You'll be like, oh, what? I identify as a woman. What? Okay. They'll be like, oh, that's a microaggression. Excuse me? Oh, that's just Islamophobia. These like parrots, they spit these words that mean nothing except that they mean a lot in the sense of what they're trying to say and the ideology behind it. But they haven't cultivated their speech. They're just saying what somebody else said. And you ask them a serious question. Hey, so with this whole Gaza thing, okay, so the river to the sea. What river? What sea? I don't know. But why do you say that? I don't know. Somebody else said it. I say it. So cultivating our speech is really important. Like super important. But it's to the morals that we speak. Okay. So I don't have a problem with somebody says, hey, they're indiscriminately killing people in some part of the world. Okay. Let's take Gaza, for example. And yes, one of my subscribers says the saddest part is most of these people are students in today's universities. Yes. And what's interesting about the universities, I'm going to go down that rabbit trail. Because the problem with the universities is that when you cultivate anything, the cultivate is education, right? Well, when our universities have been so screwed over with ideology, what you cultivate, the language that you cultivate is stupid language. Go read a book. Go read a book from like the 1800s, 1700s, and you'll notice how people wrote differently. People in their 20s. You think you're reading a book by a 70-year-old. You're not. It's some 25-year-old kid speaking in the most eloquent form you've ever read, and he blows your mind. You're like, what? How? How did they have so much knowledge and so much wisdom? And today, kids can't even write a tweet right. It's ridiculous. It really is. And so this is a problem. It's a problem because we're supposed to cultivate this speech, and yet we're doing a horrible job as a country with that. But again, we're supposed to speak to the morals. So, if you're going to tell me that Israel, for example, is actually pointing their missiles and their guns at civilians and indiscriminately killing civilians, I have a problem with that. But I happen to know, because I'm educated, meaning that I actually read things and then I try to go and learn. I actually know that's not what's happening. And I'm not gonna lie about that. I know that what's happening is that Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, is hiding, behind or under school, churches, or mosques, I should say, all right, hospitals. So they want those people killed because they want you, the non-cultivated speech speaker, to say things like what you're saying. And you're falling right into the trap. And meanwhile, you're the same person who'll say, well, you shouldn't be doing that in Gaza, but, I want my right to murder my baby in the womb. That doesn't make any sense. What kind of twisted moral is that? And so again, you wonder why I say the Christian is in the best position is because the biblical true Christian who will die for Christ does not vote for that garbage. Does not stand for that. Is not sitting on the fence about, I don't know, maybe, we don't know. We believe in truth. We believe in the word of God. And it's time for us to become a part of the discussion that's happening, not talking about prophetic, Donald Trump is the guy, or whatever it is, all this garbage that I hear. It's exposit the word, but when we do that, let's take some time to have conversations like these. I don't know if I'm doing it right. I'm not saying that I am, but I'm going to try. Well, we are the most equipped for this task. Men know what's right and wrong, which means that the principles of humanity, okay, the human rights of humanity, the natural rights are the same no matter where you go. And so we have a constitution that allows us, in the Bill of Rights, which is the amendments to the Constitution, gives us the right to be able to make a difference in our government. And we need to start exercising that. Okay. So the last thing that I'll say here on this is that our free speech, okay, when you start using it and you start speaking the truth, will limit the government official who wants more power than what he's been given. That's the truth. You know, good, proper speech, truthful speech comes with wisdom. Okay. And I'll tell you right now that the most moral people, the wisest people in the world, okay? Let's just talk about the United States, because this is where we live. The most wisest people in the United States and the most moral, good people, people that that really are about glorifying God, will almost never be in government. Which tells you something about government. There's a good chance that the best of the best of the best quality of people live outside of the government, which should really humble a politician. Like a politician that's like great, you know, people that love Donald Trump, for example. I don't care what you think about him, but some people think he's like the best president ever. Okay, whatever the case may be, is he the most wisest person that you've ever ran into, or the most moral person you've ever ran into? No, far from it. So what should humble him or a Joe Biden is the fact that you've been chosen to represent the people that believe that they have a God-given right to live free. And you don't have all the answers. You just represent us. And we've lost that in this country. We've got Christians out there who are hooping and hollering for Trump like he's Jesus. Like he's going to save this country. And Donald Trump ain't going to save this country. Whether you vote for him or don't, he's probably a better, overall, better than Biden in the sense that, he's not going to go the woke route of leftist, moronic thought that we're going down in this country right now. But he's not going to save America. You're confused if you think that's the case. That's not who's going to save America. I don't even know if America's going to get saved in the thought that you think it is. But what I do know is this. Romans 13 teaches us that government is instituted by God. The government that's been instituted in these United States gives you and I every right to speak freely, to worship our God, to speak about God openly, to do what we're doing here today. These are all things that are extremely important. And like I started, earlier, an hour ago, however long it's been now, if you're not involved in that in some capacity, if you're the kind of person who just sits in the silent, you're not even in the stadium, you're like home watching from TV, right? And you're turning it off. You change the channel. You move on to something else because politics is just not for you. Let me tell you, it is for you. Because the government is for the people, is of the people, by the people. Or have you forgotten about that? blood was spilled for that belief multiple times in this country. And so it's time for us to stop acting like we're high and mighty because, we don't get involved in the politics, but at the same time, we're being negligent in our duty as a civilian, as a citizen, I should say, of this country. And to what Romans 13, says that we should do. We should be subject to the government. But guess what? You are the one that gives birth to the government. You give it its competence. So when you look at the government and it's going haywire, you should also look in the mirror. And you should ask yourself, how many times have I compromised? Have I allowed myself? Have I contributed to this in one way or another? I know I have. And I've had to repent before God for it. So what I'm trying to do here is just get you to think about these things differently. I want to have this conversation. I want people to, Trump 2024. Just read a comment. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's fine. I vote for Trump. I don't know of anyone else that I would vote for but Trump right now. So, that's, and again, that doesn't color my politics because I don't see Trump through the same eyes that other people see Trump. I'm trying to give you an understanding of what the framers had in mind and what the founding fathers had in mind, and then show you biblically where some of these things are in alignment with natural rights that God has given us. Something like that is I guess, what I'm trying to do. Okay, so last thing that I'll say here is next week we're gonna talk about, because there's a lot more that I would like to say on this, but I just can't keep talking about the same thing every week. We're gonna talk about the importance of the press and a free government. Okay, so now we're gonna attack next week the whole thought of it's media, this or that. We have to make sure that we pay attention to those things. And the last thing I'll say, because I have to jump 10 seconds I got here. If you want this book and want a chance to win it, go to mindofmiz.com/subscribe. And we're going to get off the air here, but we'll be back with our subscribers on the Q&A.